Okay, Coach Kevin here. Welcome, welcome everybody. Good to have you with us. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start by sharing my screen with you and hang on a moment. I was conversing with someone a few minutes ago. Okay, so first thing that I would like to share with you that will be relevant for you and helpful to you going forward and even today is we have a Facebook group. By the way, if anybody is off of mute, please put yourself on mute for right now. We'll have plenty of opportunity for you to share comments and ask questions and things. But for now, please make sure you're on mute so you're not putting noise into the background. Thank you. Okay, so we have a Facebook group that coincides with our meetup. It's called I Want to Be Really Rich, and I do not apologize for it. It's exactly the same name as the meetup group minus the city initials. And this is a place where we do a few things. Number one, it's a place where we have special announcements for the group. Usually the more recent announcement is pinned at the top. The next thing we have here, if you look, boom, there's yesterday's recording. There's the day before and even the day before. And in addition, if I go down a little more, see right there, here is actually a place where you can download what it is we're in the process of studying. So if it's possible to do so, I like to pick materials that I can make available to you at no cost. And if I can do that, I put it into the group and then you guys can access it, use it for your own study and or to follow
Yeah,
along
but
with.
see, it tells you something like
Thank you, Kathy. All right. The so anyhow, that's why we have this. It's also a place every once in a while there'll be questions or comments. I'm not sure if there's any recent ones, not in the last 48 hours or so, but it's another place with us where we can interact with each other outside of the 45 minutes or so we have together Monday through Friday. So please come join us. Easy to find. Again, it's the same name as the Facebook group. Just type that here into the search or go into facebook.com and then /groups, and then / I want to be really rich. All right. Come join us and you will have access to the recordings of what we do each day. Okay, next thing I want to do is share with you right now where you can get a copy. I do have one in the Facebook group, so you can go there and find it, but I want you to know where I found it, okay? A friend of mine and also somebody who has been a coach and mentor to me many years ago, she was trained by Bob Proctor to be a coach for his programs. She taught a seminar, it's called The Science of Getting Rich, which I attended. And we actually lived in the same city, so it worked out that she and I became good friends. And I also received training to be a coach and facilitator for Bob Proctor's programs too. She has since become independent. I am also independent. Still in touch with many of the people that I've made friends with through Bob Proctor and their organization. It's just a lot of times what happens is we will grow and spread our own wings, right? Get out of the nest and do our own thing. That doesn't mean that what's going on over there's anything wrong with it. It just means that we felt through our own personal inspiration, intuition, and revelation that there was a different way that we wanted to be unique in sharing our message. So Leslie wrote a book called Hidden Treasures, and you can find it in paperback on Amazon. You could also get it on Kindle. However, I'm showing you where you could get a free PDF copy so that you can follow along with us. Um, she started making it available for free a couple years ago, but this book was written long before that. Why are we going through it? Because I think it is a very good explanation of the laws of the universe, not every law of the universe, but the laws that are specifically related to increasing your income and attracting wealth into your life. A lot of people have heard of law of attraction. That's terrific, but it's not the only law that's related to increasing your income and attracting wealth in your life. And if you're and by the way, law of attraction is actually a subsidiary law of the law of vibration. So it would be good, even better to understand the law of vibration. So there are multiple laws that are related to increasing your income, increasing your wealth. And if you don't understand what they are, they're still going to be in effect. If you don't understand how they work, they're still going to be in effect. However, like gravity, we have to understand something about gravity. We don't have to know everything about gravity, but here's what we have to understand about gravity, right? If we are walking on the edge of a tall building or a short building for that matter, it doesn't matter either way, and we lose our balance and lean off of the building, we're going to fall off. The law of gravity is going to assure that we fall down. Now, the higher up we are, the worse it's probably going to hurt when we hit the ground. Okay. And what happens though is by understanding this, what we really ought to do is not be walking on the edge of the building where we could fall off. Just not a good idea. So the law of gravity would tell us that, hey, you know what, if I want to stay safe and not get hurt by the law of gravity, I should obey the law, which means I should stay away from the edge of the roof so I don't fall off, okay? Or not as likely to fall off type thing. So we want to understand how the laws work so that we can use them to our benefit and so that we don't harm ourselves against them. And what happens to most of us is we're completely unaware of what the laws of the universe governing the acquisition of wealth and the increase of income. We don't know what those laws are and we don't understand them. Therefore, we are constantly falling off the roof. And when we fall off the roof, it hurts. And we don't end up having what we want. We end up typically with the opposite of what we want. So Leslie is sharing the different laws as she learned them and was taught them. They're not laws that she made up, okay? They are laws that exist and have always existed. Speaking of laws, we need to think of laws a little bit differently than you might. Because when we think of man-made laws like traffic laws and laws related to paying taxes and things like that, if we don't pay our taxes right away, usually there's not an immediate consequence, okay? If we don't obey traffic laws, how many of us have disobeyed a traffic law either on purpose or by accident? And every single time we did it, a police officer pulled us over and gave us a ticket, right? Probably not what has happened in our life. If we've lived long enough and we've broken the laws often enough, we've probably received some kind of citation or ticket from a police officer. But has it happened every single time we have purposely broken those laws or accidentally broken those laws? I would say absolutely not. Therefore, when we hear the word law, we tend not to believe that they are absolute. We don't treat it like the law of gravity, okay? But when we're talking about laws in this context, the laws of the universe that govern the increase of income and the increase of wealth, those laws are universal and they're absolute. It doesn't matter. You can't disobey them and not have some form of consequence as a result. Okay. So I just want to share that with you why we're studying it. So you can go to hiddentreasuresbook.com. That is hiddentreasuresbook.com. And Leslie has made this book available to download for free. And so that's what I did here. And we are on page 30 of this PDF. We started reading this a few days ago. I think we started Monday. Yeah, we started Monday. So 3 days ago is when we jumped into this. And what we're doing is we're going through, and not only are we learning, but we're kind of taking it apart in the sense of I'm reading it to you. However, I'm also offering up commentary where I think it will be helpful when I feel inspired to do so, to help you understand how this stuff really works. Okay. Because again, just having, sometimes just becoming more aware of how things really work, that is going to be your first step in actually getting better results. Because now you can actually make decisions and take actions based on awareness and knowledge instead of doing things by accident. There are people who obey the laws that govern manifesting extra money in their life and wealth in their life. And they're unaware, though, of why and how they're obeying the laws. They just are doing it. The issue is it's only a handful of people. that are like that in the world. And a lot of times, if you ask them how they do it, they can't explain it. They'll tell you things, well, I just work harder than everybody else. Well, truth of the matter is that's baloney. That's not true. There's many of you probably on this call that have worked really hard in your life, but haven't gotten the results they've gotten. So it could be that I got more education than somebody else. Okay, baloney. There's people that know more than they do that don't have as much wealth and money as they do. So they're just they don't know how to tell you how they succeeded. They're unconsciously competent at obeying the laws because they don't even know what they are. But somehow in their upbringing and in their surroundings, in their environment that they grew up within, somewhere, somehow, they were taught to do certain things. They may not know why they do those things, but those things that they do are predominantly centered around how they think and how they believe in the ability for themselves to manifest plenty of money and wealth in their lives. So we're going to share with you, if you're already very successful, this what's going to be shared with you is maybe a way to share with others how you've done it and to come to a true understanding how you've done it. But if you haven't had the financial success that you like, now you're going to understand the other people and look at them differently, look at things differently than you have. Don't think of it as their education. Don't think of it as they're smarter. Don't think of it as they're faster or stronger or whatnot than you are. Think of it as in terms of, oh, okay, they've just been following a law with the laws, not just law of attraction, but the multiple laws that govern the acquisition of money and riches. And they didn't know it, but they weren't breaking the laws. Therefore, things came easy for them. All right. So we're going to hop into here. What we're going to do after I do some reading is I'm going to try and leave somewhere around 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes for you guys to talk. You're going to have the opportunity to share thoughts, feelings, opinions, experiences, and the opportunity for you to ask questions. So when that time comes, we will do that. For now, I'm just going to hop right in and get on going. So again, if you choose to download this, find us on page 30 if you've downloaded it. If not, that's okay. I'm going to share my screen so you're going to be able to follow along. And what I do recommend that you do, because we have already jumped in, is that you go back to our Facebook group and find what we did the last 3 days to get caught up. Or at least go download the book and get caught up to where we are. It's just going to be more helpful to you going forward. If you don't, today's still going to be a wonderful day and you're still going to learn something. I just want you to get the most out of it that you possibly can. So I'm sharing with you my opinion of how you can do that. All right. In the beginning, all things were an idea in God's mind. There is an original formless substance or matter from which all things are created, and it exists throughout the universe. As Wallace D. Waddell states in his 100-year-old classic, The Science of Getting Rich, there is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which in its original state permeates, penetrates, and fills the inner spaces of the universe. The moment a thought is held in the mind, the formless substance obediently organizes itself to reflect that thought. Okay, let me repeat that. The moment a thought is held in the mind, and we're just saying the mind, let's say your mind. The moment a thought is held in your mind, the formless substance, okay, the matter, obediently organizes itself to reflect that thought. But it takes some time to manifest, okay? In due course, the original substance goes from formless to having a spirit form. Think of it as kind of a blueprint, might be a good way to think of it. Whatever it is that you're wanting to manifest goes from a thought into the form of a blueprint. And the universe is working on taking that blueprint and putting it together and delivering you the physical thing that you're wanting to manifest, which reflects the characteristics of the image held in the mind. I believe all things that are physical were first created spiritually this way. Okay. Held in the mind long enough with the unwavering belief that it will manifest in a physical form by law, it is created spiritually. Okay. That's what you're in the process of doing. And eventually it comes to us physically. That's the process of what God and the universe are doing. You are in the process of creating the blueprint and impressing on your subconscious mind that the blueprint is what the subconscious should deliver to you. As you successfully impress that blueprint on your subconscious mind puts out the signal to formless substance or matter, energy, and the signal that it gives off is says, here's the blueprint, go make this happen. And then the universe gets to work on actually making it happen. But in the process of doing it, you, me, we, the person who has that image of what they want needs to continue to hold that in their mind and hold it with a positive feeling about it instead of negative feelings about it. Positive feelings will have it help continue to come to us. Negative will either have it revert back, or it will actually bring us something we don't want. As we use our thoughts constructively, we are acting as co-creators with God, helping to bring order and form to the formless substance. Belief is an emotion which speeds the creative process, while doubt returns an idea to a formless state. Let me repeat that. Belief is an emotion which speeds the creative process, while doubt returns an idea to a formless state. So, if you desire something or a circumstance that is good and in harmony with God's desires for you, hold the idea of it in your mind, believing that it is being created and is on its way. The original substance is obedient to the law of perpetual transmutation. And this is the law that we're working on and we've been talking about, and we've shown, she has illustrations. So go download this, because there's some illustrations of how this works in this book, like literal drawing illustrations. So the original substance is obedient to the law of perpetual transmutation and the influences of belief and doubt. God understands this law perfectly and uses it to accomplish his purposes as well. It is my personal belief he commands the very elements this way. I believe this is how he organized our world in the beginning. However he does it, I'm grateful for the concept because it helps me have faith in his power. It helps me have faith, which is precisely what he requires of me before he grants my request for his blessings. Many people of different faiths may say that he established the laws. Others say the laws have always existed and he uses them for his purposes. It does not matter which way we believe. These laws can be employed regardless. Read the following passages now with this new perspective. Ask in faith, nothing wavering. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. Commit thy way unto the Lord, trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. All things whatsoever ye ask in prayer, believing, ye shall receive. Whatsoever thing ye ask in faith, believing that ye shall receive in the name of Christ, ye shall receive it. Whatsoever thing ye shall ask the Father in my name, which is good, in faith, believing that ye shall receive, behold, it shall be done unto you. Clearly, in order to be prepared to receive his blessings, we must strive to follow the Lord's example of living a pure life. Must we already be perfect? No, but I believe we must be pointed steadfastly in that direction. What is faith? We learn through the scriptures how destructive the emotions of doubt and fear can be. On the other hand, we've been taught how powerful faith can be. Faith is seeing the results in your mind as though they were already realized. Okay, that's an exercise of faith, by the way. When you do your your meditating, when you do your visualizing, seeing the results in your mind as though they were already realized. Feeling the joy now that you expect to feel then, that's kind of the next step. So you see and feel yourself actually living what you want as if what you have asked for has already been received and you are using it. Don't stare at a picture of a car and hope the car manifests. visualize yourself using the car as if you've already received the car and enjoying the use of the car and the feeling you'll have as you're using that car. Provide your faith by taking action. What action are we talking about? What we're talking about is when you successfully created that blueprint, so to speak, and impress that on your subconscious, and that is now the vibration that's emanating from you through your feelings to matter, energy, the formless substance, and it gets picked up that way. What's going to come back to you as help to receive what you want is inspiration, revelation, and intuition. You're going to get some kind of nudge. You're going to get some kind of thought or feeling of a step to take in order to receive it. What you don't want to do, though, that will cause doubt and fear is to try immediately to figure out how you're going to make it happen. Once you've successfully imprinted this on subconscious, and it could be quick if the subconscious is not programmed in opposition, or it could take some time if the subconscious has been programmed in opposition to what it is you're asking for, meaning what it thinks is, if you're asking to have $1 million a year and you're used to having $20,000 a year, the subconscious mind is going to say that is not normal for you. So you're going to have to convince your subconscious mind that $1 million a year would be normal for you. And I don't mean strictly the amount of money, but the life that you would live having that. It now says you're living a $20,000 or $30,000 lifestyle, and that's the kind of income you need to support that lifestyle. Therefore, that's what it keeps giving you. If you want to live $1 million lifestyle, you have to impress upon your formless that that is what should be normal for you. That's what you're going to work on in your visualization and creating your blueprint. But if you but let's say you ask for something that the subconscious mind has no program in opposition to, and it will immediately impact the subconscious mind, then the subconscious mind will immediately go to work to help to bring it to you, and it won't get in between you, because the subconscious mind is the thing essentially that's between you getting what you want and don't want. Law of attraction is always working. It just responds to your vibration, which comes from your feeling, which comes from your thought. Okay. And if your thought and your feeling are in opposition to what the subconscious mind thinks is normal for you, you're going to have some challenges at the beginning. But if there isn't something to block it, it will go into effect immediately. Don't worry about the challenges. There's ways to overcome those. The most important thing, though, is to visualize in your mind as though it were already realized what it is that you want, and then feel the joy now that you expect to feel when it has actually showed up and you are using it in your life. And then the next thing, though, is you may be asked through revelation, inspiration, intuition, you may be nudged to go do something. You have to go do that thing. Even if it doesn't seem normal to you, you have to go do that thing. If you don't go do that thing, you may not get what you want. If you're unwilling to do that thing, you may not get what you want. Or what will happen is now the God and the universe are going to have to find a different way to bring it to you because you're being stubborn about it. And so it's going to take longer, where you could actually receive it much sooner if you are open to receiving that revelation, inspiration, and intuition, and you're 100% ready to take whatever action that it nudges you to take. Remember that when you do this, you're setting in motion unseen forces to prepare the way for your success. Knowledge of this law of perpetual transmutation helps us maintain our faith. We learn that believing is seeing, not the other way around. See, we're used to as a society saying, I'll believe it when I see it. And so our subconscious mind's programmed that way because of society. But that's not the way it actually works. It's actually backwards. The way that things manifest in your life is we learn that believing is seeing, not the other way around. It doesn't matter what society tells us is right, because society is not right. How much of society actually has what society really wants? Very, very few people. So don't follow the herd. Do the best you can. You've been programmed with a herd. We all have at some point been programmed with that mentality of society. But if you don't like your current conditions, if you don't like what you have, if it doesn't please you, then going along with what society says is going to continue to not please you. What if we humbly and sincerely think about and visualize what we're asking for? What if we allowed ourselves to feel grateful for what we need, even before it is with us, as though he has already granted the desire of our heart? That, my friends, is faith. Let me repeat this paragraph here. What if we humbly and sincerely think about and visualize what we're asking for? What if we allowed ourselves, that's a key word there, allowed ourselves to feel grateful for what we need, even before it is with us, as though he has already granted the desires of our heart? That, my friends, is faith. Boyd K. Packer, president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, provides a clarifying explanation to help us understand the difference between the faith we exercise on a daily basis and the more rare kind of faith that we are invited to develop. He states, there are two kinds of faith. One of them functions ordinarily in the life of every soul. It is the kind of faith born of experience. It gives us certainty that a new day will dawn, that spring will come, that growth will take place. It is the kind of faith that relates us with confidence to that which is scheduled to happen. There is another kind of faith, rare indeed. This is the kind of faith that causes things to happen. Let me repeat this. This is the faith that causes things to happen. It is the kind of faith that is worthy and prepared and unyielding, and it calls forth things that otherwise would not be. It is the kind of faith that moves people. It is the kind of faith that sometimes moves things. It comes by gradual growth. It is a marvelous, even a transcendent power, a power as real and as invisible as electricity. Directed and channeled, it has great effect. So how to pray with faith? Let's reflect on how we generally approach God in prayer. Do we go to him feeling frustrated and upset that he hasn't met our needs yet, and beg him to please give us what we ask for, all the whole while hardly believing he's listening, let alone getting ready to grant our request? Do we find ourselves complaining more than expressing gratitude? Do we feel weary that it has taken him so long to make the changes we want in our life? What if he was right there, ready with that which we desire, prepared to hand it to us the moment or soon after we approach him with the right attitude, with a grateful and patient heart, genuinely believing we will receive it because we've already determined through sincere prayer that it is a desire which is in line with his will for us. Process we'll discuss more extensively in a moment. Imagine one of your children approaching you with gratitude for a sandwich they hope to receive from you. They are already licking their lips as though it was already in their hands, and they only ask once without a question of whether or not you might refuse them. They have hope and eager anticipation in their eyes. Provided there wasn't a good reason to refuse, you'd give them what they ask. On the other hand, what if the child approaches and whining, "Please, I need a sandwich. I'm so hungry." Why haven't you already given me a sandwich? You knew I was going to be hungry. Where's my sandwich? Do you blame me for thinking there's no way I should reward a child for such ingratitude? That child, if he were in my family, would go hungry until he changed his approach. Do I have a sandwich to give? Yes. Do I want the child to have it? Of course. Can I give it to him if he asks improperly? Not if I'm a good parent. Now, what if the child, instead of saying, "Please give me a sandwich," said, "Will you give me a sandwich?" and simply wait for a reply? A simple, direct, expectant question like that is easy to answer yes or no. How silly it would be if I said yes for the child to continue begging for a sandwich. The illustration brings up 2 points. One addresses the kind of questions we ask, and the other is about vain repetitions, yes, no questions. First of all, when you pray for something, consider asking yes, no questions. Ask if it's a worthy desire and let him speak peace to you if it is. If you experience a stupor of thought, which causes you to forget your question, try posing an alternative question. However, if you do feel the peace you're seeking, you may then decide to ask, is it appropriate for me to ask whether or not thou will grant it? If you again feel peace, then consider asking directly, wilt thou do this for me? Listen or feel for an answer of peace, or instead that stupor, which literally causes you to forget what it was you're asking for in the first place. Throughout this process, waiting for an answer is the polite thing to do when asking God a question, or anyone else for that matter. I realize that even after we receive a witness or confirmation, it can be a challenge to guard against doubtful, negative thoughts and dismiss them as irrelevant. But that is exactly what we need to do. What if a recognizable answer doesn't come? Sometimes we simply have to determine on our own whether or not the goal is appropriate. Then we must make a decision and go for it. I've learned a powerful lesson one day from a church speaker that at times we proceed so tentatively that by the time we realize we're on the wrong path, it's too late to fix it. Instead, if we would move forward with resolved determination and conviction, and if we are on the wrong path, then at least we'd be able to discover our error early enough to make the appropriate course correction. We do better to take action based on our own best judgment than to wait until we're told exactly what to do at every turn. Think about it. How can the Lord direct our course if we're not even on one? Sometimes the Lord's will is not apparent until a period of time after we've demonstrated a resolved commitment to a particular path. And then as they say, you can't steer a parked car. I remember a time when my husband and I had a burning desire to move our family back to our home state. I had recently learned the laws and truly believed that I could have anything I asked for. For years, we prayed to be able to move and felt good every time we presented the idea to the Lord. And yet, there we remained. Thinking that all we lacked was resolved commitment, we finally decided to just make it happen and figure the details out along the way. So we put our California house up for sale and made an offer on a home in Arizona, which was accepted and put under contract. We said our goodbyes and planned to have my husband commute on the weekends until he found a new job closer to home. Besides, the 1 hour plane ride would have been a faster commute than the 2.5 hours through Los Angeles traffic. Contrary to our expectations, our $156,000 house would not sell. Week after week, we wondered what we were doing wrong. Finally, we took the matter to the Lord again, this time with new questions. We were certain that if it was the right thing to do, or we were certain that it was the right thing to do, but perhaps the wrong time. As soon as we asked if we should stay a while longer, working to get our ducks in a row just a little better, and instead make the move in a couple of years, we felt the warm, assuring feeling of peace that told us we were on the right track. Although I thought it could take 2 or 3 more years to be ready, in only 8 more months, we felt the Spirit direct us that the time was right, and our home sold for $140,000 more than what we couldn't get for it only 8 months before. Just before I read on, see how important it is to actually learn to follow inspiration, intuition, and revelation, and how it is available to us if we'll believe and ask in the right way. The point is that every time we asked about moving to Arizona, we felt peace. But since God didn't send a whirlwind to pick us up and put us there, we had to work out the details. And when we didn't get any concrete answers one way or another, we had to make our own decision and take action. It wasn't until after committing to our decision that we felt the Lord step in and steer us a different way. We felt like we were in limbo, getting no concrete direction until after we chose a path. If we had stayed put, we wouldn't have needed direction because we were already doing what he wanted us to do in the first place. We just didn't know it yet. why we pray often. As important as it is, let's see, I'm going to stop there for sake of time. That's a good place. Why we pray often. Okie doke. Let's come out of screen share. And so here's an opportunity for you guys to share. You could share, you could have, if you have any comments that you'd like to share, any experiences that you'd like to share, anything related to what we've been talking about here, you'd like to share, any way that maybe you can relate to what Leslie's talking about that you'd like to share, and or any questions that you would like to answer. Now would be the time to do that. Just go ahead and come off mute, and the first person off and sharing, we'll let them share, and then we'll go to the next person and so forth.
Hi there.
Hi.
Kevin, thank you again for everyday preach. A great preach. My question that I wanted to ask already yesterday was, do you recommend to follow one way, one book consistently? Because I've tried several ways, and then they have, I know at the core, they may be the same, but then there are some details and sometimes they're a little confusion. What is your approach? What would you recommend? That might be a question also that others might have.
You know what, if it isn't, it should be. And I love that question actually, because it's not one that has ever been asked, but it's one I've learned the answer to, not because somebody asked it, but because Bob Proctor, I hired Bob Proctor to be my personal coach and help train and mentor me. And that's when I became a coach for his programs and whatnot. He didn't say it through his words, but he showed me through his actions. So let me give you an example of what I mean by that. And by the way, everybody, don't get too hung up on which book it is. Okay. In other words, is this one better than this one, better than this one? If you are in the mode that Leslie was talking about and you've made up your mind what you want, see, that's one of the huge keys. If you don't know what you want, you're going to be floating around. Okay. But once you kind of made that decision, now God in the universe will give you the inspiration, intuition, revelation to say, here's the thing for you, right? But here's what most of us do with that thing. We were taught in school, the way that school was given to us was go learn something and remember it long enough to take the test. Pass the test and go on to the next thing. That's how we learn most things. Thank goodness we didn't learn the times tables that way, or none of us would know math, okay? We were taught the ABCs repetitively. We were taught math, multiplication and division, and we were taught repetitively, right? There's some things that we taught repetitively when we were young that even though we're different ages now, but we're several years past that, we have not forgotten it. It's become part of who we are, right? But most of the things that we learned in school, we are not very accomplished with. We have not mastered those things because the school system and society didn't ask us to become that way when it comes to learning something. It's not until usually we get into our profession, whatever that happens to be, that we realize we better get good at this or else they'll give it to somebody else, right? If it's a job. If you're not going to do it well enough to make them happy, they're either going to quit paying you, pay you less, or give it to somebody else to do. So now we're like, okay, and we go to that job or whatever it is we do day after day after day anyway. So we start getting better and better and more familiar and more aware. And we eventually, it becomes subconscious for us. Literally, we can almost do our jobs in our sleep. Some of us, depending on what our jobs are. If it's things where you're always having to come up with something new, then maybe it's going to take more than that. But most of us, we're on autopilot anyway. Bob Proctor did something. He made a decision early on. And so his mentor, a guy named Leland Val Vanderwall, actually told him, if you'll do exactly what I tell you to do, you'll get what you want. But if you don't, you're not. And he gave him a book. It wasn't because it was the book and like, this is all you do. There were other things, right? But he's like, and I want you to start with this. And he handed him Think and Grow Rich. Okay. Again, guys, don't get hung up on the book. I've read Think and Grow Rich too. Okay. Um, but it's not the book that had the same impact on me as some others. Okay. But I'm just bringing it up. That was his book. Okay. So he read that. He didn't just read that book, he devoured that book. But one thing he figured out when he got into that book, that the author, Napoleon Hill, was commissioned by Andrew Carnegie to interview the 500 wealthiest, most influential people in the world at the time, and to take that information and create this work so that the world could know how these people became successful, right? And not just the things they did for their businesses, but the way they thought. Well, Bob Proctor made a decision early on. He said, if Napoleon Hill could commit to 20 years, because that's how long it took back then, he actually had to physically go visit each of these 500 people. And we're talking about, you didn't have airplanes. And some were they were all over the place. So it literally it was a 20-year experience to put this together, to get that information and put it into the book, Think and Grow Rich. He decided if Napoleon Hill, at a young age, he was probably 20 years old when he started, would commit to 20 years of meeting with these people and taking the time to put this together for me, I could at least spend the rest of my life reading a few pages a day. So Bob Proctor got that book at age 27. Today, he is 87. He has not missed reading out of that book for 60 years, at least something every day. Now, Bob has some additional books that he reads kind of like that. I think Science of Getting Rich is a huge one for him, written by Wallace Wattles. That was actually the book we were going through previous to. So if you go backwards to where we kind of started, that was what we started with. That particular book and seminar and everything for me helped me in less than 4 months multiply my income nearly 10 times. But it wasn't strictly the book. But for me, that's the book, kind of like Think and Grow Rich is for Bob. So Bob's got a handful of, he's read thousands of books in his lifetime, but he's got this small handful that he goes into every day. Half a dozen or so that he reads out of every, and he's got them memorized. He can repeat everything that's in them, but he still goes and reads a page or two or paragraphs or whatever and ponders over what's going on every day. Most of us don't do that. So we don't master anything. We're looking for novelty, right? Tell me the same thing in a different way to keep me, I don't want to watch the same movie over and over and over again. That'd be boring. But isn't it, don't we kind of watch the same movie over and over again? If you look at Hollywood and what they give us, there's a format, right? This is an action movie. This is a romance. And we literally know what's going to happen. I mean, they put different characters, different storyline, but for the most part, most movies follow the same pattern, or if they're a certain kind of movie, and we still spend money and go buy them and watch them and do it, even though we've essentially seen the same movie 50 times, just written as 50 different titles, not all completely the same, right? But it's the same general thing is going to, we already know, but we want to be entertained. But what Bob isn't trying to do is get entertained. So what I learned from him through example was, okay, I'm making a mistake here. I personally love reading and watching new stuff, right? It's more stimulating in some ways because I already saw the other thing. But what happened is I turn into somebody that is essentially going through the school system for the rest of my life in the sense of how I've studied things. Versus if I wanted to become a doctor and operate on people, I can't just keep jumping from book to book to book to book to book. I eventually need to decide that there's a methodology to doing this thing, and I'm going to practice it and get good at it. And then once I'm good at it, if something new comes along that can make me better, I can integrate that. But for the most part, there's a core to what I should do. And so I need to stick with that core. Same thing, professional sports, right? Basketball players still shoot free throws. They were shooting free throws when they were in elementary school, but they still shoot free throws. They can't say, well, I don't want to ever shoot a free throw again. I've been shooting them since I was 8 years old. It's like, no, in a game situation, I got to be able to shoot that free throw. And I need to make that free throw, or else, we either lose the game or they kick me off the team next year, or they decrease my income because I'm no longer worth as much because I'm not as good as I ought to be. So I took kind of a long way to answer your question, but I wanted to give you the impact of it, that you probably don't need to keep jumping around, because here's the other thing. Have you ever watched the show Shark Tank? Okay. So there's typically, what do you got? You got 1, 2, 3, 5 people up there. Usually, yeah, it's 5 people. And interestingly enough, do they all always have the exact same opinion about everything? No. Do they all actually, offer to invest in all the same things? Do some of them say that's crap and others say it's awesome? Right? And yet they're all successful, right? So I would say is this: God and the universe are the place where you're going to receive your inspiration, intuition, revelation. But learn the principles that underlie and govern the success. And there may be somebody that resonates with you, then go that path. And if you feel led to go somewhere else, but feel led. Like now what I do is, yeah, there's all kinds of books and things that I could be going through, but really what I made the choice to do this year, actually not even the beginning of the year, a few months ago, was to go deeper into what it is that helped me succeed, to make it more imprinted, than to try and keep going through more stuff. Because what you just eventually said is a lot of them say very similar things with some additional opinion thrown in. If I can take the opinion part out of it and keep the principles of what it is and understand what's, and usually that's the difference between everybody. The principles are in alignment. It's the opinions that are going to be different in certain areas. The opinions don't typically matter as much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. So we're over time. I'll do this. Anybody that's got to go ahead. I don't hold anybody hostage or anything like that. But we've just had one question. I'm going to offer my time for a little bit longer to take another question or two. If you got to go, I understand it. Come back and see the recording in the Facebook group. If not, stick with us and let's see what goes on. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Sure, I have a question.
Okay.
In reference to like in the book where she was talking about how they had their plan and they wanted to move to Arizona and they put their house up and they felt like that was the thing to do, but then they prayed about it and it didn't happen, and then it did, blah, blah, blah. So, sorry, there's some workmen. I don't know if you can.
No, that's okay.
Anyway,
So let me stop you for just one
point
second.
is just what kind of, feeling the inspiration.
Okay. So
there's so many different ways, right? It's like
absolutely. Yeah.
NET, muscle testing. There's a whole list of it.
Yeah. So first of all, what they thought was, so let's get this context correct. What they thought was, they asked if moving to Arizona was a good idea. Yes. They made the assumption that means right now. That was their assumption. That's not what they felt. They asked a question. They didn't ask anything about right now. And so they immediately used their own logic and said, okay, let's go find the house and put ours up for sale. But all they had actually asked was it a good idea? And they'd felt for years. And really the answer is should we move to Arizona? But they didn't ask anything about timing. So when it wasn't happening, they could have doubted, right? Man, that decision, our house isn't selling or whatever, but then they decided to go a little deeper with it. And here's the cool thing. It's good their house didn't sell.
Right.
They would have, right? And maybe they wouldn't have had the other, it's good that it didn't happen halfway or whatever, because they weren't really prepared to actually make that move. I've had a very similar experience when it comes to moving, because I'm here now, but I wanted to move to the San Diego area from the Phoenix area. And I wanted to do that for a few years. And there's even one time where we basically went to go make the jump, and we stayed for about 6 months, my wife and I, and ended up needing to go back to Arizona because the business that I'd put together there, the people that were running it, because I was still receiving income from it, it was falling apart. So I ended up having to go back and fix it and spend another 1.5 years there before we actually made it out permanently to California. But the question I had asked was, is my desire to move to the San Diego area, is that okay? So I did a very similar thing, and I probably didn't do it with the timing being correct for it. But luckily, ultimately I didn't get, yeah, actually it did have an impact, but it wasn't so major that it destroyed our life or anything. It was an inconvenience. Had to go turn back around and go take care of something. So what I should have done was, okay, sometimes when we ask for something, one thing that we usually don't ask, and I'm glad you brought your question up because it's making me reflect too on what have I done lately that I do or don't ask. Ask for what you want, but also ask, for, is this the time for it? Because
guess-
God could tell us
Oh, sorry.
something from our future. God could tell us something for, yeah, that's great for you. I already know, 3 years, 5 years, 2 minutes from now is okay. But a lot of times when we ask for something, we feel that peace about the thing because we're asking for something good, but we don't necessarily receive the impression a lot of times in a statement or words like a conversation you and I are having. So we don't always get the full picture. I don't want everybody to be scared here too and go, oh, I asked for something and God made me feel it was right. I'll give an example and then I'll let you go back. Some people will ask God for help to learn how to utilize the law of attraction. And then they will come, and for me, example, I'm a coach, that's what I do. And they'll say, hey, I want to hire you to be my coach or whatever. And here's it, we work it out, and here's what it costs, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, okay, great. I don't have I don't have the way to do it today, but if I do this, this, and this, I'll come back and I'll do that. Well, what happens is that sometimes they go to go do that, and the first thing they think of or try doesn't work out for them. And then they automatically think, well, if God told me to do it, then everything I do should work out perfectly. So this one thing didn't, so that must mean I shouldn't have it. And what God's saying to you in that point is, no, you also need to trust me too, that if you're driving from California to New York and you're waiting for every stoplight to be green before you actually get moving, and you expect them all to stay green the whole way, that's not how this works either. The way that you go is you go, and then you go to the next light, and then you get on the next freeway, and then you do the next thing. And there might be a detour here or there, but God will actually lead you to your final destination. So a lot of times when we run up against opposition or we feel some fear after God's told us something's good for us, that doesn't mean we're not supposed to do it. That means our subconscious mind is actually in opposition to what we want right now, because we're trying to do something it doesn't think is normal for us. So but you will never, when you ask for something from God in the universe, right? And you get that peaceful calmness, assurance, kind of a feeling of some, it's not going to feel bad if the answer is yes. It won't feel bad, right? It won't feel bad at that time that you're asking. That doesn't mean you might not feel scared later on, but that's not them telling you stop. That's your subconscious mind saying you're now trying to do something that isn't what you have done in the past. You're trying to change something, and your subconscious mind doesn't like change. It doesn't like it because its job is to keep you safe and alive, but its definition of safety isn't the definition you would find in Webster's dictionary. The subconscious mind's definition of safety is what is normal for you, not even what's normal, because it can't tell the difference between good, bad, right, and wrong. That's not what the subconscious mind does. It is your autopilot system. It's the thing that keeps you alive, keeps your heart, keeps you breathing and your heart pumping. And it's the thing that allows you to remember 3 times 9 is 27, 2 times 6 is, right? It's the thing that allows us to spit those things out like that, allows us to tie our shoe, even though we were a kid when we learned how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the thing that we'll remember forever because it's designed. God created us in such a way, I believe, this is my belief, the way that we were created to do this was master something, get it in to become subconscious so that we can now move forward and go master something else and get it to become subconscious. Then we can go forward and do something else and get it mastered and get it to be subconscious. The issue that we're dealing with right now, all of us as human beings, is we've lived in a society around our parents, our friends, our relatives, our work associates, around school, around the media, whatever, that has put all these messages into us repetitively, that finally the subconscious says, I guess that's what's normal. And as long as you accept that as normal and don't reject it at some point, the subconscious mind will finally go, okay, that's what's normal. I guess working, a lot of hours is the only way to make a lot of money. If that's your belief, that's what it's going to turn into. That used to be my belief. So I'd earn $5,000-$6,000 a month, but I'd work 50, 60 hours a week. But when I changed my programming, my income multiplied almost 10 times, but my hours per week worked went down to 15 to 20. So I literally made almost 10 times more money working less than half the hours I used to. But that was all because of a programming change.
So my question's specific to how you hear it. Like,
Mhm.
it's your intuition and not your mind, and how you, like, I know there's probably a lot of different ways people meditate or they
Mhm.
pray. I don't, like, for me, it's, I don't have a good grasp of
Okay.
what is going, oh, that's a good idea, I should do that, versus, divine inspiration tells me I
Mhm.
should do this thing.
What I tend to do personally is I will ask and thank God as if it has already happened for what it is that I want, not knowing the next step that I necessarily need to take. And I don't just sit there forever, right? I don't just sit there, but I sit and listen for a little bit. And sometimes a feeling comes right then. But I'll be truthful with you. When the feeling usually comes? Later on when I stop thinking about it. It comes at weird times, is what I want to tell you. It's like, oh, it doesn't mean do it right now, this second, but the thought will come. I'm grocery shopping or something, right? I'm going someplace. I'm watching a show, or it doesn't. But I've got my mind off of the subject for a while. But what I
Mm.
didn't do is doubt that I would receive some kind of answer. I just didn't try and force receiving of the answer. Because when I try and force the receiving of the answer because I want a particular answer, then it's more likely that it's me.
Yeah. Yeah. So that makes more sense to me too, because sometimes if I do have an idea, a goal, if I break it down, like what's the next step, that to me, that's the next best question, because then, like you said, you could be watching a show and there pops up the thing that answers your, instead of like, how do I get this grand thing to happen? It's almost like, what do I need to do next if this is indeed the right thing? Because sometimes it's just, actually, then you take the detour. It actually, that wasn't this thing at all. It was something better.
Uh-huh. Yeah, totally, totally. You're getting it.
Yeah, okay. You know how we have to, well, for me, I feel like why I'm here is just to be
Yeah.
reminded of these things that I already know, but, I wake up every day with like having to learn it again, or
Mhm.
remind myself, or just stay in practice,
Right.
like,
And that's what people maybe don't fully
Gross.
understand. Yeah. And maybe that's what people don't fully understand about a coach and what a coach is or should be. Professional athletes all have coaches. And usually usually, not always, but the very best of the professional athletes are usually better at the game they're playing than the coach was back when the coach was playing. But what the coach can see is the blind spots. And athletes, because of how it affects, could be individual sport, but it could be a team sport, because of how important it is, the impact that it has, that they do it correctly or do it to the best of their ability. They understand that if they don't, it could really change the outcome. It could change an entire season to lose one game sometimes, depending on the sport. So they have somebody there, even though they go, oh yeah, I know that. But I'm sure Tiger Woods turns to his coach and doesn't say this, right? But in his mind, it's like, oh yeah, okay, you're right. Yeah, I should have. Oh yeah, I'm off a little bit. My mind was over here, whatever. It's not that the coach is like some superhuman person, but it's a person that can get to know you in such a way that they can see what you're missing at the time. Because when you're in, that's why I have coaches too, even Bob Proctor. Every coach actually typically keeps a coach of their own, no matter what level they're at. or multiple people that they mastermind with, because we just are not, we've got too much programming in our subconscious minds that is in opposition to what it is that we want, that we need people to point out when it's the subconscious mind, it's the paradigm that's driving our actions and our thoughts and feelings versus the choice to get what we really want. So we just help people do that. And but Tiger Woods doesn't begrudge the fact that his coach is probably paid well for what they do, because Tiger makes multiples of that, right? That's also the idea behind a coach is whatever it is, when you hire a coach to do something, do you get multiples in benefit for it? That's all. Even if it's only 2 times what you paid to do something, if it happens quickly, if you hand me $100 right now and I hand you back 200 by next Friday, you're going to call that a pretty good thing. Now, if you hand me $100 today and I hand you back $50 3 years from now, you're like, that wasn't a good idea, right? And I think, though, we look at this sometimes as getting that kind of help is that way. We have all this fear around it, and it's really like, no, what if I could you handed me 100, I gave you 200 back in 10 minutes, and it kept going like that until you stopped handing me 100. How fast would your $100 multiply over time, right? To do that. So people don't understand that. I used to not understand that either. And I used to be like, I'm just going to do this and find that. And I found out, man, when somebody understands something better than I do, and it could really make an impact in my life, I should figure out a way to get them to help me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments? I'll take one more.
Hey, Kevin, I have a quick question, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
How are you?
I'm terrific. How are you? Is it Connie?
Connie, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. I'm referring back to yesterday's call
Okay.
where you suggested taking a look at Steve Harvey's
Uh-huh.
YouTube video about the
Yeah.
300 list of 300 things.
Did you do it?
And so I'm starting to
You're
do
doing
that. Yes, I
awesome.
am.
Okay,
Yes,
okay,
I am. So I wanted to know though, and I know Steve said to write it down in detail, but I
Okay.
know, and this might be mixing, methodologies together or whatever. Some people like Bob Proctor say, you started off saying, I'm so happy and grateful.
Now that blah blah
I
blah.
have this.
Mhm.
Yeah. So how did you do it? And I know when we're writing down our goals, our list of things or whatever, we need to write it with feeling or make it things that we actually want.
Mhm.
So how did you do that? I'm so happy and grateful, or did you just write down
Yeah.
what you wanted in the details like Steve suggested?
I did it like Steve, and I didn't get even super detailed with the very beginning.
Okay.
But because I'm trying to do 300, right? And I maybe haven't even thought super deeply. So what Steve talked about happens for most people somewhere. It's funny how many people really close to 75, that's about where it kind of gets stuck for a while, somewhere in that 70 to 100 range. Some get past, even I did it. I got stuck in the like 120s, 130s, something like that. When I say stuck, meaning not stuck where I couldn't do it, where it was like, brain goes, okay.
Mhm.
It wasn't going anymore for me, right?
Right.
But what I did is I thought about things, is I took time in my mind actually to detail it a little bit, but I wrote down, and this is even after more like once I got stuck, because then I actually had to think, because the other stuff just came more
Right.
natural for me. And I had to remind myself, because somebody I did this with before, they're like, I couldn't think of other things that I need. I said, well, you missed the point of this thing. Because this was, and once they opened up to, oh, it's not just what I need. I'm like, but it was hard, but then they started having fun. And literally, funny enough, it's someone that I do coach. Like over the next week, 3 or 4 of the things they'd written down had happened just because they'd wrote them down, because they weren't the big, huge goals that they had in mind, but just the simple fact that they were now aware of something. But what I did with it, I'll give you an example. I like watching NBA basketball. And so I thought, I'm going to put something down. I mean, I can buy tickets. I got money. Okay. And I wanted to put something down for manifestation that it didn't matter if I turned into a billionaire, unless I bought a basketball team, that I could not go buy in relationship to the NBA. What would that be? I decided to write down that I would be invited by an NBA player who's playing in the finals. I would be given tickets to sit behind their bench at the NBA finals. The reason I say I can't buy that, one, those tickets aren't for sale. They're given to the players only to give to
Right.
whoever it is. So first of all, I don't know an NBA player personally. Okay. So that puts it out there, right? And even if I offered $1 million, for that, if he had it available for $1 million, there'd be other multi-gazillionaires that it would be like that. Anybody could say anybody, whoever wanted to buy it could buy it. So I wanted
Right.
something you couldn't buy. I haven't had it happen yet, but so that's what I wrote down. So I put go to NBA basketball, blah, blah, blah. But what I had to do to even come up with that thing to write it down is I actually had to see myself doing it. Because that's where the idea to write it down on paper came from. Once I got past that point of being, where it stuck and the brain just went, right? So I was putting on things like, okay, so I do want to travel. How would I travel? Well, I want to travel, I want to do my traveling in a plane that actually is the kind that have the beds and the showers and everything else when I go overseas.
Right.
But I see, even me saying that created an image for you and for me, because we don't think in words, we think in images.
Taking pictures. Right.
So you could detail it for the 300. I wouldn't get too hung up on the details. I don't know if I said this yesterday or not. I might have. The next thing I think I probably said was to go get a book called It Works. Yeah. And then get kind of a top 10 list. And then take that top 10 list and break it down to the top maybe 3. But really, if I'm working as a coach with someone, I'm going to work with them on number 1 or number 2 or number 1 and 2. But I'm not going to work on this list. But what I like about what Steve Harvey said is when he says, hey, at least 10% will probably come off within a year. It's not because you'll focused on 30 goals. It's because even just planting the seed that you planted by doing that, because you had to think about it, feel it, be happy about it, write it down. That may have been a seed that was not in opposition to your subconscious programming. So the subconscious said, okay, plant. And that's where the car I got for free showed up a couple years later.
Wow. Okay.
Because it wasn't something I was actually focused and trying to get. It was something I lived emotionally, not through the 300 list, but it was something back vision board. So whatever, where it was like, I didn't even put on a vision board. But I took a few different times to live that, driving that car and seeing myself and everything. And I'd forgotten all about it.
Wow.
And I ended up having it a few years later being given to me to use for 9 months. So.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, everybody. We are over for sure. And I've got some things I need to go do. Oh, you got something, Brianna? You're holding your finger
I'm
up.
just curious, what's the Steve Harvey? I missed that.
Okay. So type into YouTube, Steve Harvey 300 list. It's not going to have exactly that name, but
Got it.
It'll probably be the first thing that pops up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. It's been a pleasure having you with us today, and I look forward to seeing you in the days to come. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Wishing you always prosperity.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.